my name is Rebecca Lee, and I am spinning a sermon for Kaleo Spring of 2018 Chapel. So, how do you define vulnerability? Is it weakness? Is it something you fear? Is it that thing you avoid the most? According to researcher Brene Brown, vulnerability is the courage to let yourself be deeply seen and fully known. It is at the core of our shame and our fear and our struggles for worthiness. It's also the birthplace of our joy, our belonging, our creativity, our love. Vulnerability looks like reaching up and reaching out, offering that part of yourself to someone else, showing up and letting yourself be seen, standing against your fear of failure and rejection, loving and living with your whole heart, even when there's no guarantee. Vulnerability takes courage. It takes bravery. It takes strength. It is anything but weakness. Now, I want to be vulnerable with you all. I want to share with you my story and how I was able to weather through the many storms of life with the support of family and friends and ultimately God's presence in my life. Because I believe that in our deepest sufferings, that is where we encounter God the most. It is when we cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel, or when we feel like our whole world is crumbling. That is when God shines His light in us and shows us that He is always there and gives us the strength and power to weather through any storm that comes our way. So I just want to share with you my story and share how I have encountered God and how encountering God has really saved me. Knowing that He loves me and cares for me has made me who I am, and the struggles I have gone through have truly shaped me. So there have been a lot of moments in my life that show this, but there are two specific moments where I've encountered God the most that I would like to share. The first has to do with basketball. Sports has been a pretty big part of my life. I'm a basketball girl. I've played ever since I was in pre-K, and I grew up in a basketball family. And at times, basketball was my life. Going to practices and games all the time, I thought I was headed towards a great future of basketball. I thought God had given me this passion and talent for basketball, and it had to be for something big. But sometimes, I let basketball be the main focus of my life, instead of God. And it wasn't until high school that I really realized that God had different plans for this basketball passion and really had a different path for me in life. September 17th, 2014. This is a day I will always remember, not because something joyous happened, but because of tragedy. This is a day that our junior varsity coach, Coach Steve Yano, fell off his ladder while doing a prayer at his home. He fell on his head and was in the hospital. I remember the exact moment that our varsity coach told us the news. I remember instantly breaking down in tears. How could this be happening? I prayed so hard that day. I begged God to please let him make it. But then came the news that our coach did not make it and had passed away. I was completely devastated. Not only was it a loss for our whole basketball program, but this was the first time I had lost someone really close to me. He was not only my basketball coach, he was a mentor and a father figure for me on the court. I remember later watching this cooking competition show called Chop Juniors, and on the show they asked the contestants, why are they competing? And one of the girls said that her dad had fallen off of a ladder and he hit his head, but he was still alive. Hearing this just made me upset at God. I kept thinking that what happened to her dad and what happened to our coach were the exact same scenarios, except for one difference. Her dad lived, while our coach died. I kept asking God, why didn't He save our coach? Why did He have to take him away from us? And just after getting no answers from God, I built up a wall, and I tried to live my life on my own. But I soon discovered that it was not a great idea, and it was a terrible 3 months of my life. I was miserable and then happy. And eventually, at a youth winter retreat, I realized that I couldn't live like this anymore. I needed God back in my life. I was lost. So on the last night of the retreat, I just broke down. I told my small group leader everything that was happening. And I told her that I wanted God to come back. And she told me that He never left. And those 3 words that she said to me will always be a constant reminder of His great love for me. No matter how much I pushed Him away, He never left. And so then I just prayed, and I just gave up all my worries, my anger, and my sadness. I just gave it up to Him, and instead asked for His presence and His joy and His glory just to fill in me. And in that moment, I was overcome with this feeling of joy. I was smiling. crying but smiling, because it made me happy to know that I was forgiven and I was so loved. And through this struggle, through this loss, I was really able to see God in my life and really encounter Him through just the sadness and the devastation for the loss of our coach. And with this love for basketball, He eventually used it and my love for ministry to lead me to Louisiana for the past 2 summers. I have engaged in sports ministries with a program called Sport Quest. And this was just God's way of showing me that He had a bigger plan for my passion of basketball, and that He was going to use me in a very different way, but so impactful. And it was just through just change of events that really shook me up, that really showed me who He was. And now, the second big moment in my life, more recent, but equally just as real and equally as powerful. This is something that I have been experiencing in the past year, something I have been going through. And this is my fight against depression. Now, a lot of people think that this is a heavy topic, and it is. It certainly is. You hear the word depression, you think such negative things associated with it. People are going through such difficult times and always seem to be going through suffering. And honestly, that's what I felt like in this past year, dealing with this depression. I thought the suffering would never end. I didn't think I could keep fighting. But even if it's a heavy topic, it's an important one to discuss because it's so real. And so many people are going through it. It is not something to be ashamed of just because all of the perceived negative perceptions with the word depression. And I only recently learned this, that depression does not only consist of negative aspects. My fight is a hard fight. It's a hard battle. There have been many times when I couldn't see an end to the pain, an end to the suffering, an end to the loneliness, an end to the anxiety, an end to the fear. I couldn't see an end to it. I couldn't see the light in the world anymore, because all I felt was pain and sadness. In those moments of hopelessness, it's where God really shined His light and really showed up. And that is where I think in my whole entire life where I have encountered God the most. In this past year, in this fight against depression, God has shown me who He is and what He is for my life. In those times where I felt like laying down and giving up, He said to me, "No, this is not the end. This is not who you are." This was just another fight that I was fighting. So He stands me up on my feet and He walks with me. He fights with me. He cries with me. And He laughs with me. He makes me who I am. We are not defined by the struggles we go through. Instead, we are defined by how we fight back against the storm. And ultimately, God is carrying me out of this storm. There have been so many times in this past year that I questioned why. Why me? Why now? Why does this have to happen to me of all people? What did I do to deserve this? And I didn't get any answers. But instead of being angry at God, I waited. Because I knew that He has a plan for me. And this was just part of His plan. God would not put me through anything that He didn't think I could handle. He gives me the strength to fight every single day. The strength to wake up every single day and keep going and keep pushing and keep being who I'm meant to be. And that alone gives me hope. Hope for the future. So when the times, even nowadays, when I think, when am I ever going to see an end to this? I just remind myself that God has taken me this far. He's not going to leave me behind. He's not going to give up on me ever because He loves me so much. He's given me the strength and the power and the community and the friendships to support me and to fight along. He's proven time and time again how great He is and how much He loves me. And just through this encounter, I was just filled with an amazing feeling of peace, knowing that God is there for me. Knowing that He's going to use me and use my struggles and use my battles and my story to inspire others. And just knowing this just gives me hope and gives me the courage and strength to continue to fight. So, in the end, true belonging doesn't require that we change who we are. It requires that we be who we are. And this is something I only recently realized. I was always ashamed of who I am. And I always felt different from everybody else. All I ever wanted to do was just fit in. But then I finally figured out that God doesn't want me to just blend in with the crowd. He wants me to be me and be proud of who I am. Things that God has allowed me to go through have made me who I am, and I shouldn't be ashamed of that. My entire life, I have seen all the struggles I have gone through, and all the unfortunate things I've encountered as setbacks, and just the world against me. But it wasn't until this year that I finally realized that the struggles weren't meant to drag me down. Instead, they were meant to make me stronger and shape me into the woman that I'm meant to be. A lot of times we'll ask, why me? Why my life? Why do I have to go through all of this? When we ask these things, God says to us, I will never send you into a situation alone. I go before you. I stand beside you. I walk behind you. Whatever situation you are facing right now, be confident that I am with you. So just know that in the darkest moments in your life, in the hardest setbacks, there's one thing you can be sure of, and that is that God is always there with you, walking beside you and carrying you out of the darkness. Because just as it says in Matthew 6:26, he says, look at the birds of the air. Do they not sow or reap or store away in barns? And yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Therefore, we know that our God will always take care of us because we're so precious in His eyes, and He cares for each and every one of us. And that, I hope, gives you the strength and gives you the hope if you're going through something, no matter how big or small it is. Know that God is going to use you, and He's going to use your struggles and use your fight and battle to inspire others, but to ultimately shape you. Thank you.